Okay, picture this. You're on a stage. The lights are hot, they're blinding, and there's a sea of faces just staring back at you, waiting. But your mind? It's just gone. A perfect, silent blank. We've all been there, right? Well, today we're diving into a powerful set of tools designed to give you complete command in moments just like that. We are going to explore Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP for short.
You know the feeling. It starts in your hands, right? That cold, clammy sweat. And then your heart just starts hammering against your ribs. It's like this frantic drumbeat that gets louder and louder in your ears. And it just drowns out every single rational thought you're trying to hold on to. So you open your mouth to speak, but the words, they just get stuck in your throat. And when they finally do come out, your voice is this thin, shaky, totally unfamiliar version of itself. You can literally feel this wave of panic rising up, and it feels like it's about to pull you under completely. And you know what the most frustrating part is? There's this little voice in the back of your head, and it's screaming that there's no real danger here. You're prepared, you know your stuff. But your body is running a completely different program, one that was written by pure, raw fear. But what if, and just think about this for a second, what if you could walk over to the control panel of your own mind and just rewrite that program on the spot? That, right there, is the core promise of neuro-linguistic programming. It's a model that's all about giving you the power to change your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors with, honestly, astonishing speed. So let's pull back the curtain and see how it really works. So that brings us right to our first big idea, this concept of reprogramming your reality. You see, NLP is built on this fundamental principle that our internal world, the pictures we make in our minds, the stories we tell ourselves, that little voice in our head, that world directly creates our external results. The idea is, if you change the inner blueprint, the outer world has no choice but to follow. The name itself, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, really breaks it all down for us. Neuro is all about our brain, our neurology, how we process the entire world through our five senses. Linguistic, that's about language, both the words we say out loud and, just as importantly, our nonverbal language and the way we talk to ourselves. And programming, well, that refers to all those unconscious habits and patterns that we just run automatically without even thinking. So in a nutshell, NLP is like a user manual for your own brain, showing you how to consciously change that programming. Now let's get a feel for this in action with our first practical case study. Imagine a brilliant professional, absolutely top of her field, but she was completely crippled by a fear of public speaking. She'd been through months of traditional therapy, but that fear just wouldn't budge. Then, using a single NLP technique, a practitioner helped her change how her unconscious mind stored the whole experience of speaking. See, the fear wasn't just analyzed away, it was actually recoded and released in one session. And that brings us to our first multiple choice question. In NLP, the term linguistic primarily refers to A, the study of ancient languages, B, verbal and nonverbal communication patterns, or C, computer programming languages. The answer is B. It's all about the language of the mind, both the words we use and the silent communication of our bodies. So, here's a big one. What do you think is the main target of NLP? Is it about digging into the past, arguing with your conscious thoughts, or is it going after something deeper? The correct answer is C, reprogramming unconscious patterns. This is so key. While a lot of other methods work on the conscious, logical mind, NLP tries to dive straight into the operating system, that deep, unconscious mind where all of our automatic behaviors and emotional responses are stored. The goal isn't just to argue with the architecture, it's to change the blueprint itself. This distinction leads us to a really important comparison. To truly get what makes NLP so unique, we've got to put it side by side with a much more widely known approach, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. They really are two very different paths to creating change. I absolutely love this analogy because it just makes the difference crystal clear. Think of your mind like a computer. CBT is like running a fantastic antivirus program. It's designed to find specific bugs, those negative thought patterns, and help you consciously fix them one by one. NLP, on the other hand, is more like upgrading your entire operating system. It aims to change the fundamental way your mind processes information from the ground up. And when you look at this table, the differences are just so stark. CBT works on the conscious, logical mind, what you're actively aware of thinking. NLP targets the unconscious, the very root of your identity and experiences. This is exactly why CBT is a gradual, evidence-based therapy used by clinicians in regulated settings, while NLP is often the tool of choice in coaching and business for creating rapid, sometimes instantaneous change. They're just different tools for different jobs. Here's another question for you. Based on this, which approach is generally considered faster for creating change? A, CBT, B, NLP, or C, they are about the same? The answer is B. NLP is specifically designed for rapid change, often aiming for shifts within a single session, whereas CBT is a more gradual, session-based process.
Okay, so based on everything we've just said, who do you think are the primary users of CBT? Is it business coaches, licensed therapists, or sales trainers? The answer is B, licensed mental health professionals. And this is a really important point of clarity. CBT is a well-established, evidence-based psychological treatment for specific conditions like anxiety and depression, and it's practiced within the regulated mental health system. NLP, by contrast, is a tool set that's used much more broadly in fields like coaching, business, and personal development.
So if NLP is all about reprogramming the mind, what are the actual tools in the box? Well, in this next section, we're going to open up that NLP toolkit and take a look at the core principles and techniques that allow you to take conscious control of your internal state. Before you even get to a specific technique, you have to understand that NLP is built on these 5 pillars. It's really a mindset for success. It all starts with knowing exactly what you want. That's outcome orientation. Then you have to pay super close attention to the feedback you're getting from the world. That's sensory acuity. And here's a big one. If what you're doing isn't working, you must have the behavioral flexibility to change your approach. And the foundation holding it all up? State management. The absolute belief that you are in charge of your own mind. Let's check our understanding here. The pillar of behavioral flexibility means A, being physically flexible, B, sticking to a plan no matter what, or C, being willing to change your approach to get your desired outcome. The answer is C. It's the famous NLP saying, if what you're doing isn't working, do something else. All right, now for a major technique, anchoring. Think of this as creating a mental shortcut or a hotkey for an emotion. Have you ever heard a song on the radio and bam, you're instantly transported back to a specific memory, a specific feeling? That's an anchor that was created by accident. NLP teaches you how to create them on purpose. For instance, a manager might consistently use a reassuring pat on the shoulder when giving really good feedback. Over time, that simple touch can become a powerful anchor for feeling competent and valued. Let's test this concept. When a tennis player squeezes their racket handle right before a big serve to get into a state of calm focus, what NLP technique are they using? The answer, of course, is C, anchoring. And this is such a brilliant illustration of its power. That player has deliberately and repeatedly linked a physical action, squeezing the handle, to a desired mental state, which is focus. They've essentially installed a button for confidence that they can press anytime they need it. Okay, let's move on to our next big tool, reframing. This is all about changing the frame around a picture to completely change its meaning. For example, a looming deadline isn't just a source of stress. You can reframe it as a powerful tool for focus. A mistake you made isn't a failure. You can reframe it as critical feedback. By finding the positive opportunity or the positive intent in any situation, you can transform your emotional response to it instantly. And this brings us to our second case study. Julia, a life coach, kept hitting these deep emotional walls with her clients. Logic and encouragement just weren't cutting it. One client felt completely paralyzed by guilt over a past mistake. So Julia used a reframing technique to help them see all the wisdom and strength they had actually gained from that experience. In a single session, years of guilt were reframed and transformed into a source of personal power. Quick question. The main goal of reframing is to A, ignore the problem, B, find a more empowering meaning in a situation, or C, blame others for the situation. The answer is B.
It's not about ignoring reality, it's about finding a perspective that serves you better.
Now, we absolutely have to address the elephant in the room. NLP makes some really bold claims, and with bold claims comes a ton of skepticism. So, is this a legitimate psychological toolkit, or is it just clever pseudoscience? In this section, we're going to look at the hype versus the evidence with a really critical eye.
In the world of business and coaching, you'll often see NLP presented as the key to unlocking peak performance. The promise is super clear. By helping individuals master their inner world, you can accelerate the growth of the entire company, leading to a more motivated, effective, and successful workforce.
I am almost certain you have seen this breakdown of communication before. The idea that what you say is way less important than how you say it has become a cornerstone of so many workshops, and it's frequently cited in NLP trainings to really emphasize the power of nonverbal cues. But here is where we need to pump the brakes and do a serious fact check on the popular narrative. This so-called rule is honestly one of the most misunderstood and misquoted pieces of research in modern psychology. Okay, so the original research this comes from was incredibly specific. It only applied to situations where what you were saying was out of sync with your tone and body language, specifically when communicating feelings and attitudes. You know, like saying, "Oh, I'm fine," through gritted teeth with an angry posture. In that specific case, yeah, we trust the nonverbals. But if you're trying to explain a complex financial report to your boss, I promise you, the words you choose matter a heck of a lot more than 7%. And this brings us to the broader scientific perspective. While countless individuals will tell you they've had massive personal success with NLP and coaching, when researchers looked for rigorous, high-quality clinical studies for treating disorders like PTSD and anxiety, their conclusion was pretty clear. There's currently a lack of the kind of evidence needed to support NLP as the clinical therapy. Now, this doesn't mean it doesn't work for coaching or personal growth, but it means it hasn't yet met the very high bar for evidence-based medicine. So let's lock this in just to be sure. Where does that 7-3-8-55 rule actually apply? The correct answer is B, when expressing feelings and attitudes, especially when your words and your body language don't match. It's just a fantastic lesson in how scientific findings can get taken way out of context. The key takeaway here is to always ask about the context. Okay, so having looked at the tools and the controversy, let's bring it all home. How can you ethically and effectively put NLP to work in your own life? This final section is your practical blueprint for application. Let's ground this with our final case study, using a great NLP framework called the SCORE model. Imagine a manager is facing declining team morale. It's a vague problem. Using the model, first they identify the symptoms: low energy, missed deadlines. Then the causes. Turns out there are unclear expectations from leadership. They define a clear outcome: a re-energized, motivated team. They brainstorm resources, maybe a team workshop, clearer project briefs. Finally, and this is crucial, they check the ecology. Does this solution fit the company culture? Will it cause other problems? In this case, yes, it fits. This process turns a fuzzy, stressful problem into a concrete, actionable plan. Let's do a quick check on that. In the SCORE model, what does the E for ecology check for? A, how much the solution will cost. B, the potential positive and negative ripple effects on the wider system. Or C, how exciting the solution is. The answer is B. It's the do no harm step, ensuring your fix doesn't create 3 new problems somewhere else. And by the way, this educational explainer is supported by Linden Heartbeat's IZ Academy UK. We really encourage you to explore their more than 150 popular courses. And for free regular updates, and to make sure you don't miss any of our future amazing discussions, please subscribe to their social media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For those of you who want to dive even deeper, a higher-level YouTube membership can give you early access to educational videos and even opportunities for personal guidance sessions. Okay, so let's wrap this all up with the top takeaways. First, NLP is a model for reprogramming your unconscious mind to change your behavior. Second, it offers these amazing rapid change tools like anchoring and reframing, which makes it ideal for coaching and performance.
Third, remember it is very different from clinical therapies like CBT, which work on the conscious, logical mind. Fourth, be critical. Some claims out there are definitely overblown, and the hard clinical evidence is still limited. And finally, and maybe most importantly, true mastery of any of this starts with you, with self-awareness and learning to manage your own internal state.
So we'll end with this one final thought. If it's true that your internal world creates your external reality, if you really are the programmer of your own mind and you could open up the source code of your confidence or your motivation or your response to stress, what's the very first line of code you would choose to rewrite?